Call the School District North Fond du Lac School Board meeting to order Monday, December 16, 2013 at 7:01 p.m. Roll call.
Chisholm?
Here.
Duffy?
Here.
Fadowski?
Yes.
Hawk, yes, and Pilat?
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is report on public notice. Mr. Singh.
Public notices and agendas were mailed to the Fond du Lac Reporter, radio station KFIZ, KFIZ 107, WFTL radio, and agendas were posted in the district office, U.S. Bank, and Municipal Building on Friday, December 12, 2013.
Please stand for pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is approval of minutes. Any noted corrections? Seeing none, we'll approve as presented. Next item on the agenda is treasurer's report.
I got it up for you there.
I'll read this one. Starting cash on hand balance of November 25th is $186,760.87. Total receipts of $1,060,298.94. You got total cash on hand balance of $116,370.41. And up for approval tonight is checks totaling $995.88.
Is there a resolution? I'll make the motion. Approve. Second by Mr. Pilat. Any questions? Seeing none.
Maria, I told Maria not to, with the snow, I didn't know how long it would last. So I told her to stay home also with Samantha, that's why they're gone. This is with the roads, I know that Maria, she said, and also Samantha, if you have any questions or need anything, feel free to ask, but I also can help to answer the questions.
I would just like to extend to Maria about the BMO. I like the way she broke it down. I had that concern a few months ago. It was just one figure, excuse me, at one time, and now I actually see what sure it costs and what we get back as far as our rebate. So I tell her thank you for doing that. So,
Definitely will.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Duffy?
Yes.
Pilat?
Yes.
Chisholm?
Yes.
Fadowski?
yes.
And Hawk, yes. Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is clerk's report. Mr. Hawk.
Appear to be a, just check that. Oh. Have a card from the North Fond du Lac Optimist Club. From Dick Sauer, raffle chairman. Thank you for a generous donation for the pancake breakfast raffle. I'll pass that down. Good.
Next item on the agenda is student council report. Ms. May.
This past week, we had our Penny Wars, which went really well. We raised $234.67. Student council will be going shopping tomorrow after school to buy presents for a local family in the district, and they will be delivered to the family on Friday. New events that will be taking place will be the bake sale this week, actually. We will have our Valentine's Day fundraiser in February, our annual family night in March, and members of the student council will be looking forward to attending the Wisconsin Association of School Councils State Conference and Competition Program, which is held in Madison this year on April 27th to the 28th.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is citizens input. I will open it up to citizens input at 7:06. Any citizen wish to be heard? Any citizen wish to be heard?
Just know.
It's been slow. We got that call. Final time, any citizen wish to be heard? Seeing none, citizens input is closed at 7:07. Next on the agenda is superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duffy. I have only a few things. First, what you'll notice is the only item I have on there is a grading scale recommendation discussion. This is not a recommendation right now, but what we will do is I just want to set the seed. The real process that we're looking at here is not about the grading scale per se, but an evolution of the way that our staff looks at how we evaluate students. And the more and more that we get and understand how to best appropriately evaluate students and their progress is based on standards grading. You know, what are they expected to learn and how have they gotten to that standard or not. At the elementary school, we have 100% standards-based grading, which we changed a few years ago. At the middle school, so for instance at Melanie, at Friendship, it doesn't say you get an A, B, C, or D. It has a 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on how your progress is based on, like in reading fluency or comprehension. So it doesn't say the kid's failing, it says here's where they're at and what they need to improve on. Then it looks at what are those skill sets within those standards that they need to improve on. Much more meaningful and much more worthwhile. At the middle and high school, we do have letter grades, and we know that there is perceptions from colleges that letter grades are really important. Reality of it is we're seeing a lot of different schools across the country changing to standards-based grading, numbered grades, and I don't know if that's the right answer or if there's a good blend, but the reality of it is that currently we're looking at how we grade, and we know that a lot of teachers utilize rubrics, and A is an A is an A. If an A was 90% or 93%, it's not about the percentage, it's about what they perform and how they can show what they're earning. But when we look at our grading books and we look at also students' perceptions in the psychology of student achievement, is 93 an A and 70 an F the best thing? Looking at what's around in different other schools, is it fair, is it not fair? I don't think every one of our teachers really take into consideration as A is an A regardless of what the percentage is, and the percentage is a big deal. And I also know that that does cause a lot of stress with students. Looking back, we actually were talking about how did it come about. Melanie said it was teachers that possibly did. Samantha talked to some teachers at the high school, said it might have been the board who wanted things to be more rigorous, but the reality of it is going to 93 for an A isn't about rigor, it's about making it more difficult or harder, which doesn't really necessarily transfer into this is more meaningful and asking you to stretch your learning. It's just this is the punitive cutoff for what it is, and since we're making it harder to attain, it must be more rigorous. So looking at that, what I've asked the administrative team to do, and I'll let you just have a little impact, Melanie. We'll talk a little bit about standards-based grade in just a minute or two. Adam, I want you to give a little bit of input of what you got from your teachers. I just want to throw that out also at the board. I know we've talked about this in the past. And I think that for me, my recommendation looking forward is that we need to get better at assessment, period. Period, we need to. Look at response to instruction. If they're not getting it, if a student isn't understanding, we have to change the way that we deliver instruction. And then see how that outcome can work. And we're really working on that with response intervention. But in the meantime, as we work towards more standards-based grading maybe for the entire district, I really think from a psychological standpoint of kids, from an understanding standpoint of adults, I think that this is something that I would very much want the board to kind of think about, ask questions, contemplate, and see if maybe, you know, in the meantime, as we look to change the way we look at assessments and evaluations, go to the 90, 80, 70, 60 model. And I think there is also, because I can speak of people that I know, students at 93 in the pocket probably tell you, is that a stressful thing? Is the 90 an A? I mean, if you had a 92, is that disappointing? But yet you're getting 92 out of 100 possible points, whatever that is. And the high school philosophies of teachers is very different than middle school and elementary. Especially elementary, we're looking at standards. That doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, it just is what it is. So what I'm going to do is, if Melanie, if you want to comment a little bit about standards-based grading, if you know a little bit of the history about this change. Adam, if you just give a little feedback from what you found out from your staff. And then Pa, if you wouldn't mind, if the board would be okay with Pa just kind of explaining what she thinks from a student perspective. And then if Steve, you probably have the best perspective on this, to just give a little bit. What I want this to do is not to have any board action or anything, but just to start that conversation so we can ask those right questions. And I don't want this to turn into what their staff see now it's all fixed. Grading and assessment all fixed as if we do this, because that's not it. But this could be a step for us to start to evaluate and look and see what happens. So,
had Friendship, we moved to standards-based grading a couple of years ago, primarily because our efforts to improve areas of literacy and mathematics were based on benchmarks or accomplishments that students should have when they're exiting one grade level to move to another grade level. Since we looked at the standards and looked at those benchmarks, it made more sense to us to report out where students are on that journey into moving through those standards and meeting those benchmarks. So instead of a letter grade, it's, are you at mastery of that particular benchmark? Are you working towards that? Are you developing that skill? Or, have you not been able to attain any of those levels at that benchmark? It works best for us because it is an objective that students understand, what are we looking for them to accomplish? And that's more of a motivator for elementary students than to say that you have a C. Because what does a C really mean to them? What is it that you're looking for? So that language helped students acknowledge what we're asking them to accomplish, and it helped us to see where are they? Where are they at that point of learning before they move from one grade level to the next? Because the standards are written at grade level, and most elementary standards are very specific to each grade level. So it has worked well for us, and we would not change back. We would not go back. So,
Can you give a little perspective on what you know about the scale, if you know about how
the 90, 80, 70, 60, I couldn't remember exactly when that debate came up, but the debate came up that 90, 80, 70, 60 was not rigorous enough or was not differentiating students effectively or accurately. And it came before the board. There was a lot of discussion as to why there needed to be that change. And after a lengthy discussion, it was passed. The current scale was passed by the board with input from a number of staff members, feeling that was more clearly established higher expectations for students. So when you came back with 90, 80, 70, 60, I thought, well, we've cycled all the way back to where we started. And, Aaron knows this, I've had this conversation many times. I am not a scale person because a number is a number. We could take that number and we could call it 95. We could take the same level of expectation and call it 88. We can call that number anything. A number is just a number. It's what is that level of expectation? What are those benchmarks? What are you looking for? What is that rubric of attainment that you want that student to be at? That, to me, is the real crux of the conversation. So,
And like I said earlier, that's where we have a lot of work. And the mindset of elementary teachers is very different than the mindset of a high school teacher. So, but that's, if we stay or change, that will be the main focus. This is an evolution that we have to get better at identifying what that means. What does an A mean? What does a B mean? Not what percentage that some computer kicks out, or then you have to manipulate or do whatever. What's it mean? So regardless of whatever points they get, they're practicing, they get there, it means this.
And yeah, as I threw this question out to staff a week or so ago, I was kind of curious if they've been waiting maybe 10 years to have someone ask them that question. What scale do you think is best for kids? Because I had probably 20 responses within the first hour, and I'd say every teacher or staff member about one said that they would love to go to that 60, 70, 80, 90 scale. I think that's more appropriate for our students. Some mentioned, like Mr. Sales said, just the neighboring schools around us had that same scale. Many of them talked about how, the scale that we currently have, isn't really doing what we thought it would do as far as getting kids to, kind of,
Work hard.
yeah, work hard. It's kind of almost the opposite effect has taken place. It sometimes be demoralizing because a student gets, say, 77% on something, which is almost an 80, and they found that that's in our scale, D level work. So I think sometimes that, is disheartening to students. So, and speaking from what I've known from the first 3.5 months here, when we start to talk about how do we help kids learn, or if we're talking about students that are struggling, we're talking about our district-wide assessments, we're talking about state assessments, we're talking about, authentic student work, formative assessments in the classroom. Rarely do we say, what grade is that student getting in comm skills? That hardly comes into the discussion, and if it does, it's usually relating back to the missing work or something along those lines, as opposed to learning and what level that student has, intellectually. So, for our staff and for myself too, I think again that scale is what it is, and I think it's it's an indication of where a student is, intellectually, ability-wise. No, it's more again just the score they got, and sometimes again we see it as something that's just can kind of have the opposite effect then, as opposed to motivating the student or encouraging them to do better. So definitely, to our staff will be for a change like this, but also again, if the scale doesn't change too, we're still going to be focused on learning and helping kids be successful. So.
Bob or Steve?
Well, I don't really see that many people not try for an A, but then again, I think it's because I hang around the people who actually do try. But I do understand how it could be stressful. Say you're trying to fight for one of the top 10 spots and you get an A-, and that brings down your GPA. Or, some people would work hard for it, but looking on your transcripts, we are on a 4.0 scale, and it doesn't really specify either like 193, or if you're at Fondy where it's 190 is an A. Colleges would look at just the letter grade, and on the 4.0 scale it would be the same. So I'm not sure if it's really, I don't really know what to say. Sorry.
No, that's good.
Well, I remember, it's come up over the 20 years now that I've been under all 4 superintendents. And originally, what my recall is, it was one particular ex-board member who, very intelligent lady with high-performing students here, who thought along that line that if we have a tougher scale, we're going to push our kids harder. It's going to be more rigor or whatever. I don't think that word was used at the time, but we would push them, and that might be one way to solve our lower test scores and things like that. I recall the staff being pretty split at the time. That some did, some didn't. I was always against it. I don't recall how I voted. That goes back quite a while. But since then, I think I brought up with each superintendent's the fact. Again, I agree. The number is a number, and we still do what we can. But where I was upset about it was in comparison with the other districts around us, or kids who are competing on the high end for scholarships, and not so much college admission, because I know there's a lot of different factors that go into college admission more than the grade point. But and then actually too, since I started something on in Laconia where they have the 90, 80 grade point, it's in comparison thinking, a kid here can get a 92 on a test and have an A, and our kid, not that they would, but could have the same test and get the same score, but in North Fond du Lac that's a B. And is that fair? Scholarship-wise, it comes into play when they're looking at applications from different districts. And then on the other end, on the lower end, I think there were some coaches who talked about problems that can create. Again, to use Laconia or Fond du Lac as an example, somebody could be holding a 77 or a 72 or something at our school district and not be eligible for a sport, where somebody doing the same thing at a school around us would be eligible based on it. And it's theory, because there's different standards at each school and that. But so again, I've always felt that the 90-80 was important for us to go to, because that's what people around us were doing, or the people that districts that our kids would be compared with in various ways. So, and then at one point, I know we also switched to kind of a splintered thing with A minus with grade points, 3.87. So you could get an A minus, you get all A minuses, but not have a 4.0 grade point average. That was always a little odd to me too, but I don't know, I haven't heard much complaining about that fact. We'd also even talked at one point about going to the college system of, A, B, C, and that, which, I don't know, because the thought there was that that's what most kids are gonna have when they get to college. Anyway, that's my recall of it, but I would have no problem if we decide to switch until we come to some final thing once all this standard stuff washes out over the next few years.
Any questions or comments from the board? No, I'm good with it. I had some people approach me and ask. I was actually going to talk to you, but all of a sudden I see it on the agenda. So the parents had approached me about it, the grading scale, and I said, well, I don't have the history of it. I have no time to talk to you, so obviously the timing was quite impeccable. Yes, so I agree with it. They give you some points. I agree with it. I mean, if that's the way you look at the college, and the grades are great. You're going to do as well as you're anyways. I think the bottom line is the learning process. How do we prepare the individuals the best of their ability? In the grading, it's only to divide and for scholarships and that stuff. But I'm for it. I don't have an issue with it. If we move forward with it, bring a recommendation to change it to that.
Brian and Pete, you guys have had students through here and comments about, and John also, comments about how the impact or anything? Or more information you want us to kind of find out before if I would come with a recommendation?
Yeah, I don't have a preference one way or another. I mean, that really came up to me or really thought about that much when I see it come here. I understand what you're saying with scholarships and stuff like that. I understand, we understand that. I like to look into it a little more, but I have, think I have an issue with it. The grade's a grade, I mean, it's going to be a benefit to our students. Could be, probably. I mean, I don't see it being a deterrent to it.
I knew there was a disparity between what some of the other districts were doing and us. And I hadn't heard the arguments, so I was appreciative of that history. But it seems to me that it's really the measure of what a student's doing isn't really the question. The question is, are we being seen in a disfavorable light compared to the other districts? And so are we being an advantage as long as we're confident that we're evaluating students properly to maybe go back to the other scale?
I think, just from a standpoint, I think the scale is going to not be an issue in about 5 years. It's going to be more standards, especially when we start looking at better assessments online, adaptive assessments, so it'll become where's your deficits. So, yeah, I hear you about that. It's weird, like you said, about full circle, how things kind of come full circle. What would you do?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see it be uniform throughout the districts around here, apples to apples. If that's what they're doing, then I think it's probably a pretty fair assessment. If you follow my, let's say we're looking at how the students are doing, it'd be nice to have things pretty much consistent. I don't know all the districts around the area, how they're doing it. I haven't heard the data and that. Are we the only one with a different system than?
What I'll do is I will find that information out, but I'm pretty sure there isn't many other ones that are this way.
Sure. I think I'd like to be consistent on that with everybody else. We've been trying to do that with, WKCDs and make sure we're consistent, apples to apples, making sure we're rated the same as everybody else, so we know where we sit.
And we're doing that too with how we're assessing kids now with the use of the alternative assessments. But I think we're going to be more on track with that than we've ever been before, where we're playing the same variables, if you will, as everybody else. And the reality of it is, I think that's a very good point. I didn't really think about scholarships, because if I'm on the Optimist Review Committee, I look at the WLA scholarship because they live in this community, or North Fond du Lac or Fond du Lac. and I see 4.0, 3.7, it never comes to my mind, well, is that 3.7 actually maybe a 4.0 if the scale's different? I never really thought about that, and I've been on some scholarship review committees, and that has nothing to do with college, it just has to do with how are they viewed based on what they've accomplished. And if a teacher knows what an A and an A is, you can manipulate any numbers. But I don't know if we're to that point where every teacher sees that. I think there is the mindset where kids are in grades and it's up to them to do this. But how does that flow into things? So I'll find out what different districts do. And also, as we talk with the administrative team, if this is something that I'd recommend be in place starting for next year, then the question will be, this is not the end all be all. This is just a transition for equity to look at psychologically how it impacts our students. Will this have an impact on improved achievement and efforts? I mean, if you've got a 67, are you even going to try anymore? Knowing that, well, I'm failing, so I can't get up there. But if you got a D, we keep monitoring that instead of just throwing up. There's a lot of different things we can look at, and we could come and do it for a year. The thing is that nobody's going to be at a disadvantage as far as like class rank goes, because everybody will have the same rules. If it changes next year, everybody, regardless if you're a senior or a freshman, you're going to have the same rules. So there wouldn't be any disparity there that I would see.
Well, then one other point, as far as if we get perceived as weakening it, I don't see that happening either, because I don't see a student relaxing and say, well, I'm not going to work as hard now because I can get an A at 90 instead of 93. They're still going to do their best, in my opinion.
Cool, so what I'll do is I'll look more into this and then look for a recommendation maybe in February, March, that then would impact how we look at our grade. It really comes down to looking at what the numbers we put in the Skyward and what we do as far as putting into our handbooks. As far as the assessment question, that's going to be, I believe, an organic evolution of when we look at Smarter Balanced, when we look at response to intervention, RTI, we're going to focus more and more on assessments. It's not going to be a new district initiative because we're about initiative doubt. But I think that will be something that we're talking about already now. When you look, right, Melanie, with Fontes and Pinnell and MAPS data, we're already looking at assessments. But, just preliminarily listening to everybody, this could have an impact. We can look at it. And if, if it doesn't, you can always change back. But it could very well have a positive impact, and we could see what that looks like. So look for February, March. We'll get some more information. Samantha will be able to fill us in a little more, and then I'll report back regardless of if I make the recommendation or not, so that we're on. And then you guys can also maybe ask around to ask your kids who have graduated that went through this. What do you think? Do you think that's going to make a difference? How could that be? Just ask around. Ask coaches that you see around. Ask different family members, because it's a perceptual thing. I think Melanie hit it on the nose. It's a piece of data. And what is data? Data is a symbol that represents something else. And it's a piece of data that's supposed to communicate achievement of a student. And does it really do that? As Melanie said, it never did, and that's why they changed at the elementary. So I appreciate the feedback, thank you, and I just want to kind of set a seed so as we go forward, we can do that. You will also see then that you just please, if you have any questions, read through those updates from Samantha, from Adam, from Melanie, from Debbie about their goals and what they're doing. That's what they did now, is they just wrote a one-page summary of that. And I told them no more than a page. I said, and that was a tough one for them. I even had to say what font size, because as you know, they like to be very thorough. But I said, just one page. I don't want you to bend over backwards, but I want you to just have the board see a little bit more. Once again, what goals have you had? How are you going about doing that? So I think they did a very good job reflecting on that. Okay. Do you have any questions of them or of me? Final thing is, we will have a Christmas party at my house on the 3rd. I know a lot of you have already told me, you and a friend, spouse. 3rd, that's Friday. I was going to originally have it on the 10th, but the Badgers didn't make the Orange Bowl, so we'll have it back on the 3rd. I didn't think that any of us would want to sit and pretend and talk to each other while the Badger game was on. So I thought that was, so we're back on the 3rd on that one. And then also the district party. It's at Fat Joe's again on the 25th. And that's the Saturday week before the Super Bowl. We're going to have a live band, good time, $8 per person, let Karen know. A lot, really low-key. We've been having better and better turn. I think we had over 100 people last year. So I know the high school, I don't think the high school did, was the leaders or the NFEA with Jim and Linda's, remember that, kind of evolved away from that. And this is our district celebration, so be aware of that and you're more than welcome to come. I will also be sending out a video message using the cold video that you all experienced through the whole district, and I'd like to, on behalf of the board, thank them and wish them a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. And I'll be sending that out probably Thursday, and I'll reference that all if you guys give your best, if that's all right. All right, I was thinking about we could record it now, but that might get a little hokey. So we should be good there, all right? Otherwise, that's all I got.
First item, new business, approve educator salary and compensation advancement plan. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Malowski,
A second?
second by Mr. Chisholm. Discussion.
This has been out there for over 2 months. Only one group of teachers asked me to meet with them, and pretty much there wasn't any questions. They just thought they should ask to meet with me because I put it out there. I've had some people say, what is this? And I think that's not an apathy, it's more of a, they trust. Melanie was on this team. I really believe in this plan. I'm excited to see how it works. We've talked about this also, about how we're going to fund it. But I think we are on the cutting edge of doing something very, very special and unique that will be mimicked within a few years by many other districts, because I think it focuses on really good theories, motivation, Daniel Pink's ideas, and also professional capital that Dr. Hargraves and Fullen have developed. And you can reference all that online. So instead of drawing that out, we had the meeting earlier. I'm very proud of the group. I also want to thank the board. This is the only district that I know where you have given the authority to myself and our teachers and administrators to come up with a plan. And your thing is make sure it's something that's based on a philosophy, make sure that there's objectives and ways that we can measure to see if it's effective. And we've come up with that. So I thank you very much. We don't take that very lightly. We take that extremely serious. Thank you for the belief in us. And I believe that we have brought something to recommend you that I think is very, very good.
Sure, I can declare a potential conflict of interest. Remove myself from discussion.
Question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to double checking the section on our summary of the notes. Does any educator evaluated that needed improvement for 2 consecutive years to be non-renewed?
Correct.
We are still okay and have the option to non-renew somebody at 1 year?
Oh, yes.
Okay, but not.
We have the option, let me also tell you this, that we have the option, we're moved away from this thing from labor relations to work relations. And as I told the administrators, I think this was a big epiphany for them too. We could evaluate somebody as being effective, but maybe they disagree with their reading program, maybe they disagree with their special education philosophy, maybe they disagree with the way that we're going with the district. We cannot renew them, even though they're an effective teacher, because they're not the right fit. We can do that. So this is just saying, hey everybody, up your game a little bit. And like I said, we had 3 that were evaluated as not in need of improvement, so they would not get the raise. Also, developing would not, the difference between developing or in need of improvement is, are you a new teacher or are you a veteran teacher? That's it.
Go ahead.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Golowski,
Yes.
Chisholm,
Yes?
Duffy,
Yes.
Hawk abstained, and Pila.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is approve educator stipend increases as determined by the ESCAP. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
That will be the second part that we'll look at every year. This year I recommend, based on our budgeting, to put $75,000 into that. And as you can see, it'd be broken down by our board certified educators getting each a $2,500 raise. And then also our somebody who attained the master's after in this estuary time, that she gets recognized for that. And then that we have to take 15% of it for FICA and WRS, which then would leave $56,250 that would be put into the scale to give raises to the staff. So this is that I am recommending that you put $75,000, that the board authorizes $75,000 to be put into the escape plan as dictated by the administration's and the plan's delivery method.
You know, that money was already allocated.
Correct.
Correct. Any other questions?
I guess I'll need to declare conflict of interest again.
Okay. See them.
Are we waiting on the vote? Okay, Duffy?
Yes.
Elon?
Yes.
Chisholm?
Yes.
Gillespie?
Yes.
And Hawk abstain.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approve resolution to change language of flex benefit plan with diversified benefit services.
I'll make it.
Motion by Mr. Elon. Second. That's second by Mr. Chisholm.
There is no more ask me, just taking that out of there.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, roll call?
Elon?
Yes.
Chisholm?
Yes.
Duffy?
Yes.
Gillespie?
Yes.
And Hawk, yes. Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is approve resignation of educators. I'll ask that we do it as a group. No problem doing it as a group, okay. Seeing none, A, Gail Gosdeck, B, Susan Belden. I'll make the motion. I'll second. Second by Mr. Chisholm.
Both of these ladies have decided that they will find more success pursuing different options in life besides working at the district. Each of them I talked to, and there's been some agreements about some different stipulations that we can have in the resignation. With Gail, she's been an employee for 30 years, and the resignation agreement would be that she would get the post-employment benefit of just over $40,000 over 5 years. And that would begin in September. We continue to pay for insurance, and that she then also says, you know what, district, good to go, and appreciate the time served with the kids, thank you, and moving on, everybody go their separate ways. I'd also recommend that we waive the $300 breaking of contract, or $500 breaking of contract also. With Susan, she...
Excuse me,
Yes.
you said pay the health insurance, that's unlimited, right?
Correct, 5 years over 5 years, divided out over 5 years.
Right, but then, now that we're continuing the health
Correct.
insurance until
Until August 30th, or she finds a new job.
2014. I
Yep.
just wanted to clarify, it wasn't for 5 years, we're
Nope.
paying the full insurance.
No, insurance goes till August 31st, 2014, and then she has her retirement benefit, and that she was very thankful to the board, that the board would consider that. She did dedicate 30 years of service to our district. She was very thankful. She looks forward to other opportunities. And then with Susan, Susan was a 33% educator at the high school, mostly for physics, and she just has decided to move on in with hers. That she would be, her last day was Friday, if you would. She resigns as of Sunday, is what it said. And then I would say accept her resignation, along with, I also would recommend waiving her $500 breaking of contract fee.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, roll call?
I think we should have that in the motion, because that's part of the contract, that
Yep.
we're waiving the.
Yep.
Maybe.
Okay.
With the resignation of the educators and waiving of the breaking of the contract.
And then I also have in the yellow folder an signed agreement from Gail that stipulates exactly what I talked about. Susan, she just has a letter of resignation, and there is nothing more than just what my stipulations was. I've talked to her, and I'll contact her tomorrow if the board agrees with this and let her know that. Thank you for your service.
All right. Duffy?
Yes.
Chisholm?
Yes.
Gillespie?
Yes.
Hawk, yes. And Pilar?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is approved coaching and advisor contracts for 2014-2015 school year. A, Doug Forsythe, varsity cross country and yearbook advisor. B, Matt Doro, assistant strength and conditioning coach. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mr.
First one, awesome. Doug, I think will do a great job in cross country. Actually, I think we will be at the state finals probably the next year for probably the next 4 years. We have some incredible young cross country runners coming up, and Doug's a dedicated person, wrestling coach. He does a lot with our business. And he also, with Susan, was also the yearbook advisor. With her no longer doing that, he's agreed also to be the yearbook advisor and take that on. So very much appreciate Doug being part of that. Just a side note, we do have a new heavyweight wrestler on our wrestling team right now. Just so you know, his name's Mike McDowell. They didn't have, Austin Hernandez didn't have anybody to wrestle. He's our heavyweight. So last Friday, Mike went in, and he's been going to keep going in. So we have a new 44-year-old heavyweight. Yeah. And we actually had in wrestling, we had another student from the Springs that's going to join. So yeah, we're going to start, and then Doug, they're actually volunteering also with Tim Tuig from Florida Quest. He's a very big supporter of wrestling. We're going to start shipping a mat over to their 8th grade building, or the elementary building. I think they're at St. Mary's or St. Joe's. St. Joe's, and we're going to have a wrestling club there too to help to build it. So I see us really in the future building our wrestling, and Ken and Doug are doing a great job. Matt Doro, we did bring up a way of how we're going to add different positions to Gene Hintz. This one, Zach and Mike came to me and said, hey, we have a lot of kids coming in powerlifting. They have 17 kids powerlifting and coming in that aren't in any other winter sports that are just lifting. And you have Jenny's helping out volunteering, and Vat's helping out, Zach's doing it. But there's also a safety concern. And the safety concern is we want to continually to have people watch, and what Zach and Mike asked is, could we just develop this assistant strength and conditioning coach? We're not asking for a ransom, but they'd be present, and you can see that it's spelled out exactly what they should be doing, and the stipend would be $300. And Matt Doro is an assistant football coach for us. As a matter of fact, also he worked for Excel Engineering. Part-time was a contracted work. He has a degree in engineering. Friday just came and he's a substitute now. He did his first day of substitute teaching on Friday. So in the meantime, as he's looking for other full-time employment, he'll be doing substitute work too. So he's a great fit for this. And the biggest thing is that safety aspect. It's not much money, but it's enough to say, hey, thanks for considering this, and now that person's also held responsible for following through with these.
I know it's not a lot of money, not probably splitting years, but that like $300, is that going to be part of the weightlifting coordinator, or is that?
No, it's not. In addition. Are you powerless? You're not powerless? You can still, I'm sure they'll take it. Or wrestling.
See that roll call?
Duffy.
Yes.
Pilat.
Yes.
Chisholm.
Yes.
Gulowski.
Yes.
And Houck, yes. Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is approved school calendar for the 2014-2015 school year.
Make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Pilat,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Hawes.
What a difference of making a calendar from how it used to be. Pretty much came up with 2 big ideas. Right now we have hours and days that we have to meet in a year, and you can see these. I have the staff one up there right now. If there is a state statute that's looking to be passed, and I hope it does, and what that says is they get rid of the day provision but maintain the hours. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility. But right now this it works. We have to get 180 school days in for our students between after September 1st. And as much as people say, you know what, I'll take more vacation, let's go to the second week in June. That would be, I think, political suicide. As much as it sounds good now, you get to June, the more, if we need to get out, I think, before the end of that first week of June. So looking at those provisions, so how we can best meet the needs of kids, you'll see that this calendar is here. The big thing is maintaining, there's no longer an off day in October, nor so we can fit these in.
Is it taken away to fit somewhere else to make it work, or
Yes.
is it philosophy to take that away?
Yeah, to make it
But
work.
people that missed that 4-day weekend at the end of October for family things.
And if they still want to do it, they still can. I mean, you have 2 personal days, take your personal day, pay for the other one. So if there's staff that says, you know what, I still want to do some things, we're very flexible with that. We also know that on that 30th to 31st, there's usually a music conference, an art conference. We're still going to recommend, or we're still going to support anybody who wants to go to those things also. But looking at this, the big change, I think, for our community is that this recommends that we go the second Friday of every month as early release. From a staff standpoint, we want to make sure, I put it out to the staff already, and we had some anxieties, how productive will we be, staff, that second, or that the afternoon on a Friday. Reality of it is we're professionals, and that would work out, I think, as long as we hold ourselves accountable. I also put, we're going to do everything we can to deny any leave or going to the vet or going to the doctor and scheduling those things. We want people together, working together on those days. The big change is families. Looking at how can we be more flexible for families and kids. The early releases, they're done. Their weekend starts maybe 2-3 hours earlier, as opposed to just in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. So we're thinking that this could also then have a positive impact on relations, or on the perceptions of our families too. And if it doesn't work, we can go back to a different day. Heck, we might even think about, as we look at what other districts do and how we can best use our time, to a late start, like on a Monday, every second Monday. Or maybe the teachers will do that instead of having an early release. But I think this, we've done the Wednesdays. We didn't really know how the Wednesdays fit in there. Thought this might be a little more family friendly. Give it a run. You can see that we have a long spring break, 1 week, come back the day after Easter. You can see the Christmas break is substantial. And so we almost were looking at, instead of having the 30th and 31st off, taking the 22nd to 23rd. But I guess Weiser had said if we need to break up that spring a little bit. So we have that there. Also, we have makeup days. If state statute switches, it's an hour, not a day thing. I would not be adverse to saying we don't need to make up that day as long as we have the hours. But what our staff would have to, because they have a 191-day contract. So we would expect the staff to do more professional development if we did that. I'd explain that more as we got there. But we have this. Then you'll see the educator days. Since we no longer have the convention in the fall and the convention in the spring, in order to maintain that 191 days a contract, because I really don't believe any educator is going to say that's fine, cut 2 days per diem off the contract. I think that'll work out. Plus for us, we want our staff to work on professional development. That's where they really learn to get better. Being away from their kids isn't a bad thing if they have that classroom set up and if what they're doing helps them become more effective and efficient as an educator. So what we're doing this past year, what we did is we said those 2 days, the week before in-service, you had to do 2 days, full days of professional development. We're saying, hold on a second, okay, we get it. But during the summer, there's App Fest, which we started, there's reading programs, there's math camps, there's all these things teachers can do that are worthwhile, that in the past, they might ask to be compensated, or we look at if we tell them to go, we should pay them. AP conferences. Now what we're saying, and what I'm asking as you approve this, is now from July 1st until the beginning of in-services, the teachers have to do 2 days of professional development that are okay by the district. So if that's App Fest, if somebody does a AP conference, if somebody goes to that math camp, like Connie and that, whatever, they have to document those, and that would be okay. So those are really changes. Anything else that you guys can think of? Oh, and graduation would be May 31st. That's not Memorial Day, it's a weekend after, just Memorial Day's really early. This is the earliest we'd ever have graduated. We always said the first Sunday in June. If we would continue to have that. Right now, I remember, Pa, would you? Well, are you looking forward to not being at school for the last week?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. So we would have to go back to old way of where everybody be gone and we have graduation again. And I think the high school staff at first was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to differentiate? I think they love having the seniors gone because the seniors have already shut down. Would you say so?
Sure.
All right. So some of them, thank you. So keeping in that, this would get our seniors to graduate that Friday before, or the Sunday before, which is not Memorial Day, but the week after. We would finish on, but the intent still is the first Sunday in June. It's just this, it just falls like this because Memorial Day falls so early.
So this makes that official. We don't have to do a separate action.
Nope.
Picking the date.
This is it. Graduation May 31st. Remember that? Remember those?
Yeah.
For 2015, you're saying?
Yeah, this is for 2015. Yep.
Yeah, we've already done.
Yep, we already did. The first Sunday in June is when it always is. It's just, this is the only exception because, like I said, Memorial Day is so early. So. And then you can see that we also have the family one that has all information, and pending board approval, I will get this on the internet. I've already talked to Randy, well, I haven't talked to him recently, but I put his logo on the bottom at Minuteman. They usually give us a great deal. They print these on nicer paper. We can get them out. So Matt might even think about putting magnets on this year, hand them out, that way they can put on, because it has all the resources on the side, emails, numbers, all that. And that's one of the things parents, well, I don't know where to find, well, it's already here. So that's the calendar.
Any questions?
Oh, and Adam, just, I think that I thought of you when you said, so, you know, I put out the thing about grading, and within an hour I got 20 comments back, right? I put out A or B schedule, longer winter or have a spring break. I got more feedback on that than on the compensation plan. I got more feedback on calendar stuff about, and what people would say, this is what kids really need. And you can read into it. No, it isn't. It's what you really need. It's what the adults really need. You know how they sell it? It was great. And anytime you do anything with calendar, that's kind of, we've been on the calendar committees, remember? Silly. I mean, it's all the stuff that happens, it's just something. And now you only can do so much. But it brought warmth to my heart to know that people do care about the calendar. And our calendar really treats our educators as professional. And we'll talk to them more about what's expectations of those 2 days. But I think that we ran into something this summer about, hey Aaron, we want to go to this math thing. Do we need to pay them because they're taking the time? No, we wouldn't have to worry about it because that's some of their contracted time. It's just they have the flexibility to choose that.
What about if they don't do it, for whatever reason?
Then they'll get docked per diem. So if they don't fill out the appropriate paperwork or not get it approved, and we'll be very clear, crystal clear with this, then what I'll do is I'll tell the business office to dock them those 2 days because that's salary. Those are expected days. And if we would ever go to not making up days because of hours, there would still be that expectation. You're going to then have to make up that day in professional development. Otherwise, you can choose to get that docked. So I always want to make sure that educators in general want to. And we have people working more than 191 days, 8 hours a day too. So, but definitely, if that doesn't happen, that will be articulated to them.
That's good to have an out. I'm just thinking if somebody's signed up for their second day late and something happens, or they're ill or whatever, then they can't make it, but they have another opportunity. They weren't just blowing it off or ignoring it.
I would even go to this point. If they don't do it because of a hard case situation, then we will not paint ourselves in the corner. So let's say something like that does happen. Well, there's always developing of curriculum or assessments or evaluations of things. There's also throughout the year, if they do a Saturday workshop somewhere, if they don't make it in those 2 days before, that's what the goal is. But if there's circumstances, then we'll deal with that on an individual basis and make sure it happens.
Yeah, that's good. But you have to have some kind of, that makes the summer dates very important.
Correct.
So they don't just say, well, I'll do it later.
Right. And that, but I'm just telling, from a standpoint, if they don't, if somebody just blows it off and says, I forget, well then, I guess we can forget 2 days of pay. I mean, it can work that way too.
Sure.
So, and that's all right. But I highly doubt that'll happen. And there'll be tons, we have, that was that Friday early releasing that we first started toiling about. How much value are we gonna get out of that? And then it's the same thing with like bereavement leave when we had that conversation. If we start to look at things from a standpoint that people inherently will do the right thing, that's different than saying how do we punish everybody because people will take advantage of it. So we're trying to make our policies and all that based on the best. And I think that will pay benefits as time goes on.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Elon?
Yes.
Hawk, yes. Chisholm?
Yes.
Duffy?
Yes.
Elon?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is approved administrative contracts for 2013-2015. A, Debbie Ellinger, B, Melanie Cowling, and C, Samantha Freeman. Cowling?
Colin. I spelled it right? C-O-W-L-I-N-G. Colin?
I'll make a motion. Motion by Mr. Pelot.
I'll second that.
There's a W. Now you got me second, yes. Then Colin, other than Morris. Oh. Sorry about the disparity. As I said, and we talked about this, they do a very good job. They've been asked to do more and more. They have more responsibilities now with educators and within their buildings than they ever have. And I appreciate all that they do. And they will continue, and that's one of the things you saw with their goals. What's going to happen with them is it's goal-driven, and their evaluation also will be based on their student learning objectives, which are pretty much on how their schools are performing. So.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Pelot?
Yes.
Chisholm?
Yes.
Duffy?
Yes.
Malavsky?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, the last item on the agenda is discussion of 2013 WSB resolutions in preparation for Wednesday, January 23rd, 2014. Delegates 7 that we can hear and discuss if there's questions regarding it. Steve McGinn is going to be our delegate, as always.
And there's no action here. I'll just summarize. All of them make sense. And all these are is recommendations that go then to make like the platform for the WASB, which then impacts the SAA, which is our political action body. So then Steve had a great idea. He said, hey, Aaron, could you get this information out earlier so we don't have to spend the time going over each one? So we got that information out, and now this time if you have any impact or if you have questions of me or of Steve, I would say my recommendation based on the experience and the information I've learned is everything that they articulate in there is good for public education and kids and us.
More so than any I've seen over the
Yeah.
years. There wasn't even any that I felt, well, we better kick this around a little bit. And when I had served on that committee, the staff at WSB had always said we try to have them somewhat controversial or middle of the road so that there can be some debate at the assembly. And there always will be, because there's 300-400 different viewpoints in the districts there. So, but yeah, I didn't see any of that. I thought, in fact, they were pretty much slammed down. They were all, and it's within this new world we're in. A lot of them pertain to that. And things that have happened after Act 10 and unions going away and stuff like that. So.
I would say that now, used to be the WEAC, remember at grade schools, WEAC had a ton of money. Their political actions and the impact that they had on Governor Doyle and on prior elections, it was all about Native Americans and the impact that those PACs had, and also WA Trust and teachers unions. Well, since the WA Trust is no longer or not the trust, excuse me, WEAC, the State Teachers Association isn't as much of a player because they don't have the revenues or because of what Act 10 has done to labor unions in the state. Their voice really isn't as strong. That voice for kids used to be there in schools. It's no longer there. Now the most prominent voice for public education to kids is WASB, WASDA, and WASBO, the business officers. And so these, I think that might be one of the things where it's no longer, well, let's see this is what's good for public education. They've been honed. I mean, we've been really articulating and fighting for what's good for schools as far as Common Core and funding and vouchers, all those things. So I think I agree with you, Steve. They're pretty dialed in and no nonsense about this is what's good for public education for kids.
The only one that I had a question on was the resolution about co-curricular activities, and I understand that the platform is to oppose legislation that would mandate that we provide access to it, but the middle school Fund 80, we give that as an option today?
Oh yeah, Fund 8. That's totally this is WIA stuff. Okay, we are not a WIA middle school. So we don't fall under any of that. We follow a lot of the WIA guidelines, but we don't have to. And since we have our middle school that we fund through our Fund 80 community, it's open to anybody in the community. We don't have hardly anybody who takes advantage of it because they want, even if they're at St. Paul's or if they're at the Spring or at the Academy, they want to play with those teams because that's where their friends are. But they could come here. Homeschoolers, I know I talked to one family who does have some homeschool kids. Really, we could do that? Yeah. But you just don't see it as much, but they're open. This is more for high school. And this came from specifically a situation, I believe, that involved us. That Jeremy Thiensfeld, I believe that one, and this is, and I'll go on record, is that the reason that this came up is that the Springs didn't, or the WLA didn't have hockey. Springs had hockey. And in order for kids that, if they wanted to play hockey, they would have to leave WLA, go to the Springs, unless they could go to their school that then would have a co-op so that they could play. So what in essence this would do is, hey, if we don't have it, Fond du Lac, if we live in Fond du Lac, if I'm a WLA student or a Springs student, I live in Fond du Lac and we don't have swimming, you have to let me swim at your school. If I'm a homeschool kid, you have to let me play football. And then it's like, well, where's the accountability for the grades, or where's the accountability for or expectations of practice, all those things. This has come, if Representative Steenfeld would have talked to the WI or other people before this has been discussed ad nauseum for decades. And has always been, he didn't ask anybody. He just said that let's try this, let's float this balloon out there. And because of that, it caused some stir, because you do have a group of people who don't look at how this impact, like Common Core. The first suggestion that came out of Common Core from all these things is let's make it illegal to have retinal scans. I have no idea where that is in Common Core. But that's one of the main, that was the number one recommendation from all these Common Core hearings was, let's make sure it's illegal to do retinal scans and collect biological information on kids. Because people go for, this is about scare tactics, this is about worst case scenarios, this is about, hey, my kids don't go there, it's all about the money. And there's some, and I've articulated this with our representatives, I've talked, and I'll be the first one to tell you, when I go on the radio, I'm telling you exactly what I believe the facts are. And the reality of it is, we've got a lot of smoke screens going on, and look at the shiny thing over here, and oh, by the way, now we have a $10,000 tax credit for anybody, no matter what you make, now that revenue's gone. And you thought it was all about vouchers, it has nothing to do with vouchers, because that can be controlled. So there's all these things going on, like with that, that's had nothing to do with what's best for kids or what has gone on or what happened. It's, I want for my kids what I feel is my obligation. I want to play all your rules, I don't want to go to your school, but I want to use your pool and I want to use your sports teams. And you should give me the right because I do. That's where that came from. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that's where it came from.
See nothing else. Happy holidays to everyone, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Something